Welcome back to the channel. Today I have a video of Bishop Barron and Ben Shapiro talking about the Jewishness of Jesus. This discussion took place on Holy Week, and therefore it was a timely discussion around the Passover and Easter and how they correlate. This video is short, but it is jam-packed with theology. Bishop Barron explains the realness of Jesus, or the necessity that we see the Jewishness of Jesus. Without a historical and Jewish Jesus as rooted in the Old Testament scriptures, Jesus at best becomes a bland moral exemplar. Let's watch this video, and then afterwards I will have a comment or two.
So one of the things that you've been talking about a lot is what you call the re-Judaization of Christian learning and Christian faith, the reconnection with the Old Testament, because after all, Jesus was a Jew, and not only was a Jew, was a practicing Jew. So obviously this week, it very often the Hebrew calendar correlates with the non-Hebrew calendar, with the secular calendar. It doesn't this year because of a weird kind of quirk in the Jewish calendar. So usually Passover, Pesach, and Easter fall during the same exact time period. They happen not to this year. But obviously, when you're celebrating Holy Week, one of the things that you're celebrating is historically Passover, because the Last Supper was, of course, a Passover dinner.
Right. And you won't get anything about Jesus without getting the Old Testament. As you know, Paul said, he's the yes to all the promises made to Israel. That means if you don't get Israel, you won't get him. And one of the problems, Ben, I think we've talked about before, is when you divorce Jesus from Judaism, he turns into a teacher of timeless truths. He turns into a bland sort of moral exemplar. And that's what the liberal culture often wants him to be. He becomes a rather harmless figure. I can take him or leave him. He's very interesting, but so is Confucius, and so are, but the Jesus who's grounded in Israel, who comes up out of Israel and is appreciated by the first Christians as the fulfillment of Israel, fulfillment of temple and Torah and prophecy, covenant. So when Jesus says at the Last Supper, this is the chalice of my blood, the blood of the new and eternal covenant, well, he's citing Jeremiah 31:31. The days are coming when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel, and I will write my law on their hearts. Well, see, we Christians tonight, as I record these words, it's Holy Thursday, and we celebrate the Eucharist. So what Jesus established that night, giving us his body and blood, and we eat his body and drink his blood, what's happening? The Torah is coming inside of us. The law is being written now in our hearts. Well, you won't get any of that unless you're averring to the Old Testament. And the readings I'm preparing for the liturgy tonight, they immerse us in that. The first reading, it's all about Passover. It's all about the temple. It's all about covenant, sacrifice, and so on. Without that, you won't get Jesus. You'll make him a bland figure.
A prominent theologian in the 21st century, nearing his death, was once asked, "What is the most dire issue facing the church today?" He sat there, pondered, and thought, and then in a brief flurry, he said, "Getting Jesus right." Now, what he meant by that is something akin to, there needs to be a revival in the church. A revival in the church is understanding of who Jesus is, biblically, theologically, and historically. Now, in another lecture that I watched from this theologian, he was explaining how in history, Jesus is usually a chameleon. Now, what did he mean by that? For example, the philosopher Hegel was a German idealist. Therefore, in his era, Jesus was the supreme idealist. He then went on to explain, for example, modernism and its correlation to humanism. And therefore, in modernism, Jesus is the supreme human. And obviously, lots of religions like to think of Jesus in this way, that he's a great teacher, he's a great human, but he wasn't actually God. Or a more immediate example is the Super Bowl commercial of this year. You see, Jesus in this Super Bowl commercial is the supreme empath, and therefore, he gets us. Jesus is a chameleon. And what that means is that Jesus usually changes with culture and personal preferences. And this just shows us that we have to get Jesus right. We have to get him right historically, theologically, and biblically. Now, I see all three of these in this video. As I was reflecting upon this video, I saw that Jesus was shown to be historical, theological, and biblical. For example, Jesus is a Jew. That's history. Jesus is found in the Eucharist. That's theology. Jesus has to be understood as connected to the Old Testament. That's the Bible. But furthermore, I began to reflect on the urgency of this issue, and I'm reminded of St. Augustine's famous words in his confession. You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. Now, I speak from personal experience here, but what I have found is that I usually get Jesus wrong when I am not restful and when I don't have peace. You see, to find Christ is to find life, and to find life is to be found by God. To be found by God is to find love, eternal love. And where there is eternal love, there is abiding rest and peace. And that is what this channel is all about. I wanted to provide one nugget of advice. Where do we start looking for the real Jesus? I would suggest that we start by looking in the Bible. And the reason I say that is because we live in a modern age and the Bible is everywhere. We have ready access to it, right? Ponder this little poem that I heard from theologian Stuart Oliot. Read the Bible at a chosen time each day. Read the Bible while you may. Do not start until you pray. Ask, what does this passage say? Find Jesus Christ, who is the way. Then find a lesson for today. Pray once more and go your way. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Share this with someone who might need it, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.